because, that's what you guys really are. I mean, we live in a society where we are constantly under attack just for our very existence. So the fact that you've made it this far is a miracle, honestly. And you've defied the odds already, right? Just by being in this room. Regardless of how you got here, where you're from, how you grew up, you're here now. And that is a cause for celebration. So give yourselves a hand. So I'd like to share a little bit of my story with you all in hopes that it might be encouraging to some or all of you. So I grew up in Cincinnati, Ohio, and I was raised by two educated black parents. In fact, my grandfather on my dad's side was a Rhodes Scholar. And so needless to say, education was very important to me growing up. Not because anybody told me explicitly, but because I knew that if I was ever going to get out of the suburbs of Cincinnati, Ohio, education was probably my best bet. And yes, I wanted to get out, which is a feeling that some of you in here might be able to relate to, but not because I was ashamed of my community, but for other reasons. First, my family traveled a lot when I was younger. We used to go on family vacations every year, so I knew there were other places out there, and there were places that I thought were a lot more interesting than Cincinnati, Ohio. I also wanted to get away from my parents. 18 years of being told what to do and having to listen had taken its toll on me. And that's a point I'll come back to, but I think in retrospect, more than these reasons, I wanted to get away from everyone I'd ever known. Because only then I would have the chance to recreate myself and to be different than who I'd been for the last 18 years. See, I know I had a happy childhood, and nobody can take that away from me. Two loving parents, an excellent public school system, a pretty cool older sister in a community that reflected my identity and my values. Incredible, transformative experiences and a growing sense of independence. And yet, there was always this weight that I found myself carrying. I went online yesterday, actually, because I wanted to show a friend the choir robes that we used to have to wear my freshman year of high school. They were like the kind that you might see in a Black Baptist church on Sunday morning, and why we had to wear them at a public school to sing in was beyond me. But in any case, as I was searching for a picture to show her, I came across a headline that labeled my high school the most diverse high school in the city. And that really made me pause for a second, because I just thought, wow, in this place where so many people gathered and were educated together, why did I never feel like I fit in? And so now you're all thinking, we came here for a Black History Month celebration, and now this woman is up here talking about her life for 5 minutes straight, and what does this have to do with anything? But I think the reality is that I can't think about my experiences outside the lens of my identity. And now I'm here, and now I'm speaking to the Black women in the room, right? We sit at the intersection of Black and woman, and that's a hell of a combination. Because as women in American culture, we're taught at a young age that a lot of our worth is tied to our beauty. And I didn't have straight blonde hair that flowed past my shoulders down my back, so I was already off to a bad start. And I remember my sister and I, we would spend our summers at the rec center not too far from my house. And we used to ride our bikes there for swim lessons and then spend the better part of the day there. And we would swim together, but I would always get out and lay in the sun because I was a skinny kid and I would get cold after like 10 minutes. And I remember she would always make fun of me because as the summer went on, I would get darker and darker. And we used to put our forearms together and compare skin tones and argue about who was lighter. I always knew I was darker, but something in me knew that admitting that would mean admitting defeat, and this was a competition I did not want to lose. I never knew what the consequences of losing would be, but I constantly felt the need to keep up the facade, and that weighed heavily on me. And when I turned 14, I got my first relaxer. Before that, my mom wouldn't let me, even then she wasn't happy about it, but I begged and begged for it so much. Yeah, I was deep in it. My peers used to call me Oreo so much that I started slowly embracing it. So when I tell you I wanted to get away from everyone I had ever known, I wanted to get away from being the kind of person who hated herself, who hated being black and all the weight that it brought with it. I knew I wanted to go somewhere where nobody knew me so I could start over and be someone different. There was only one problem with my plan. When I got to St. Louis, I was still black. But I've often asked myself since then why I never really felt like I fit in high school. Now don't get me wrong, I had friends and I did things and I enjoyed my experience, but I always felt like I was between two worlds. And in retrospect, I realized the reality was this. I was too white for the black kids and too black for the white kids. W.E.B. Du Bois coined this term, double consciousness, and it's this idea that as black people in American society, we have two separate social identities, making it hard to develop a sense of self. We're constantly under attack in this society on multiple fronts, in the streets, in our schools, in the prisons, and in our own homes, at times inside even of our own selves. I didn't realize how much anti-blackness I internalized until I started organizing. And it's funny that I'm even up here speaking to you all in honor of Black History Month because I used to hate history. Yeah, it used to be my least favorite subject in school. I hated it. I thought it was a total waste of time. I didn't understand what any of it had to do with me, and I didn't see myself in it. Every Black History Month, all we talked about was Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and a few other tired names that we talked about every year before we went back to learning white history for the rest of the year. In fact, by the time I got to 11th and 12th grade, we barely batted an eye for Black History Month because we had to stick to the International Baccalaureate curriculum. I watched the media lie to the country about what black people in Ferguson were doing in the streets for the first time. And for the first time, social media provided an outlet for the truth, for us to tell our own stories, to tell our truth, to write our own history. But I never went to Ferguson. I felt bad about Michael Brown, but I didn't see what difference I could make by taking the 15-minute trip from my campus up the road to yell and scream in the streets. But later I vowed never to miss another opportunity to take action. The road that led to my transformation was a series of classes I took my senior year at Washington University. Terror and Violence in the Black Atlantic, a class on black authors, radical black feminism, and a class called Don't Believe the Hype, Race and Social Movements in America. Once I started to learn names like Audre Lorde, Phyllis Wheatley, Stokely Carmichael, Assata Shakur, Kathleen Cleaver, Elaine Brown, and Claudette Colvin, names that get buried in our whitewashed education system where the kids in the South are still being taught that the Civil War was the war of Northern aggression. I fell in love with my people and the women that paved the way for me and you to hold our heads up high, not for us to kneel and assimilate into white culture. And as I learned about all these incredible black women and men who defied the narrative and did crazy radical things in the face of oppression, of real, immediate, and menacing threats, I began to realize something. Though they all fought for our freedom, they were all radically different from one another. I think about W.E.B. Du Bois and Booker T. Washington. They were diametrically opposed in their methodology, and yet they both wanted the same thing. Through this, I actually came to realize that there is no one way to be black. There's no script for blackness, no role to play, no right or wrong way to do it. No thing that you have to do, no way you have to act, no thing you have to say. Now don't get me wrong, black culture is very much a thing, with multiple parts and an ever-evolving list of complexities and nuances. But for me, I needed to know that it was okay to be a black woman who grew up in the suburbs, that it was okay to be a black woman and to have two black parents that went to college. It was okay to be a black woman and articulate myself well. It was okay to be a black woman who enjoys country and rock music as well as rap and hip-hop and R&B. It was okay to be black and to still be me. Black history taught me that it was okay to be black and to be proud. So now I get to organize every day to build black power here in New York City and across the state because I deeply believe that grassroots movements like the Civil Rights Movement and like the Black Power Movement are the only way we win real, lasting change in this country. No one candidate can get it done. Barack Obama didn't get it done. The real change will come from real people deciding they want a different society and moving to build a sustained movement to get it done. And that's exactly what I get to build every day at Community Voices Heard, a member-led grassroots organization organizing in all 5 boroughs for racial, economic, and social change. So if you'd like to know more or you want to chat, please come speak to me afterwards, and I would love to connect with you all. Thank you so much for listening.